Cliff Richard, how are you?
Hi, Alex, I'm fine, thank you very much.
It's really nice to talk to you again. We seem to be doing this every year now, and every year you have a new album, and it does gangbusters, and your fans still love you even more and more and more. It must be great being you.
It is nice being me, actually, and it's one of those things that everyone for years and years now has thought that I kind of own Christmas, as though I'm the only person that releases a record. What no one seems to understand is that the reason why everybody and their mother records and releases records at this time is because between October and December, there are probably more sales than there are in the rest of the year. I mean, I know everything's changing because of downloading. Maybe downloading happens all the time, but the big hit records always happen at this period. And that's why people like myself, you know, who are trying to make money for our record companies as well as ourselves, as well as songwriters, as well as musicians, we record and release things for this period.
I could be wrong, but I suspect that money isn't your main incentive in releasing a new album. Is it giving something back to your fans when you release one each year?
Well, it's a bit of everything, really. When I first started my career, I have to say, the reason why I started was strictly because I loved rock and roll. I couldn't believe my ears when I heard Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis and the Everly Brothers and Buddy Holly and, Eddie Cochran. Remember Eddie Cochran? So it was strictly for that. What happened is slowly as you become successful, you realize, I'm having a fantastic time and they're paying me and they're paying me well. And so suddenly the money comes into it. So yeah, I have to be honest and say, I do it for all the reasons. And as I get older, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, you know, I'm in a business where, unlike a lot of businessmen I have a lot of friends who are businessmen, and sometimes their money comes in and they haven't done anything, because someone else has sold something for them, you know what I mean? Whereas I suddenly thought, oh my goodness, at this age, I only earn if I do it myself, if I actually go and physically do it myself. That has to come to an end sometime. But no, with an album like this, the pleasure was that EMI wanted to release a compilation of my successful love songs. And they said to me, what about if you could record 4 or 5 songs that you've always wanted to do but haven't recorded before? And I love that kind of challenge because there are so many songs that I wish I'd got first. And so I chose 5 songs that I really, really loved and I did them. And the danger of that is, of course, is that you find yourself in competition with some classic recordings. Because I chose some real fabulous records, I think. The originals were so good. So what I try to do is make them my own. And when we finished the tracks, my engineer and I were in Barbados together, and I said, well, what do you think? He said, well, I have to say this. They do sound like Cliff Richard records. So I thought, great. And that's all you can do, you know, because sometimes you can't, even in people's minds, the original record, like for instance, my Move It. People keep saying, no one's ever done Move It like you. Well, that's very nice. Some of them may have done it better than me, but what they remember is their first hearing of that song in a particular time in their life, and that remains their favorite version. And that's true of the songs I've chosen to do. I don't know whether mine are better than anybody else's, but I'd like to think that they pay respects to a song and artists who have done a fantastic job having hits.
What fascinates me about this business is no matter how big you are, no matter how successful you are, or how long you've been doing it, you still have to go out and promote your records and let people know you're there. It's odd, isn't it? Because you've got such a massive fan base, yet you still got to tell them there's a new album out.
Yes, and it's even more so now, because we all know, but the problems with radio is that I guess radio's just not big enough for all of us. So some of us have got dumped. And that's okay. There's nothing you can do about that. People play what they want to play. Fortunately for me, I do get played around. There's lots of regional BBC stations, gold stations that play me. But when you have a hit, you have to... Let me tell you this. When Millennium Prayer was out, and it was number 1 and sold 1.4 million CDs in 5 weeks... I was told I had 400 plays that week, and I thought that was terrific. Then I discovered that other records were being played 2,000 times. Now that's the difference. So I can't expect that, and I don't expect that anymore. So I have to do much more in the way of interviews or television shows just to get myself heard. Because even if you're going to get a download, why would someone download you if they don't know you've got something out? So you're back to radio again. Radio is still, for me, radio and rock and roll. When I first started, radio and rock and roll were hand and glove together. I made records firstly for me, secondly for radio, and thirdly, if the public liked it, that was a fantastic icing on the cake. And the radio's been taken away from me. As you say, my fans have been loyal. And I still now have to aim my music, though. You know, I'm planning to do an album of standards next year, stuff that I've actually tried out with the fans on stage. And they turned out to like all the stuff that I did by Cole Porter and Rodgers and Hart. And so I've got about 15 tracks that I'm preparing, and I'll go in and do that, because, you see, that doesn't need a great deal of airplay. When I heard Rod Stewart's, you know, the songbook, the American songbook, which I loved his songbook stuff. The first time I heard "It Had to Be You," and I thought, that sounds like Rod Stewart, but it can't be. Then Michael Parkinson said, and that was Rod Stewart. I went straight out and bought the album. No doubt about it. I didn't need to hear any more, because Michael Parkinson said this album is just all this kind of music. So if I make the right album, and if it's good enough, we'll release it. And if people hear me singing, I don't know, one of those standards, then they'll know what's on there. And by the way, Rod wasn't the first. Even though I loved his tracks, I suddenly thought, why don't I do it? Then I thought, wait a minute, I did do this. I dug back to 1962, and I looked up 2 albums, listened to Cliff and one other, Cliff Sings. And on it, I sing, there are 8 tracks on each album, and I sing all those old standards. So you see, that was 62, Rod. I did it years ago. But I have to say, I loved that. I play that music in Portugal and Barbados. When I'm sunbathing, Rod's always on my, one of the CD jukebox setups. I haven't really quite got into the iPod. I find the iPod is going to take too much music, and I like to change my tracks. I like to change my CDs every other day. So I have it on for 2 days, and then I like to go through my hundreds of CDs going, ooh, I haven't heard that for ages, and play that.
Now, we've got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about Scylla. I just did an hour special with her. She gave me some juicy secrets about you. We're going to talk about the new album, of course. We're also going to talk about what it's like being you today. We're here at Television Centre at the moment, the day we're taping this. You're about to go on national TV, BBC One primetime tonight, and you're so calm and collected. We're also going to talk about the new album, of course, and I think it's unique, I think it's different, and I think it's really, really nice and listenable. So congratulations on that, because there's a lot of rubbish out at the moment, isn't there?
Well, thank you very much. I mean, it's I don't know, but unique's a difficult word to use these days, because it's only unique in that I'm the only one that's released this album. That makes it unique. But in terms of the musical structure of it all, it's not unique, because there are other people who do similar kinds of songs. And in the end, I've always felt that really the music, the pop world, is bigger than any of us. It is like a huge supermarket. And on every shelf, there's Cliff Richard or Celine Dion or George Michael or Paul McCartney, all the names you can think of. And people sometimes go to my track and pick it out, and sometimes go somewhere else. But, these kind of albums have a place because they capture a mood, and because we've gone for the love songs. And also, I've tried to make sure that the tempos change a little too. There are a couple of tracks that have a little bit more beefy feel to it. And of course, my favorite song on the whole album, though, was not mine originally. People ask me what I think of contemporary writers and singers, and I said, well, I hear a lot of good singers and bands, but they don't seem to last. Whereas Daniel Bedingfield is still around. And I just, when I first heard If You're Not the One, I got goosebumps. Now, I do not get goosebumps anymore. I hear records that I like. I hear records and think, wow, listen to that drum and bass. Everything's fantastic. But I don't find the songs particularly memorable. I'm generalizing. Of course, there are the occasions. And then this occasion comes, and I thought, Daniel Bedingfield, he's done it again. He wrote this wonderful song, and it gave me goosebumps. And as I said earlier, the thing is to try and make it your own. And so I just did it my way. I put it in my key. I still got my height. I still got the top note. It's a different note to his, but it's in my pitch. And I love the effect of it. I love doing it. I don't know whether he's heard it yet, so I'm hoping that sometime along the line I'm going to get a call. He calls me occasionally, that I'm going to get a call saying, what a load of crap, or loved it.
If You're Not the One's on the brand new album by Cliff. It's called Love, the album. And Cliff's with us for an exclusive hour-long program today on your favourite local radio station. We're back with Sir Cliff Richard, If You're Not the One. Really high, that top note, isn't it?
It is, actually, but you see, it's not as high. It's not high for me because I chose the note that I could go do comfortably. I can go higher than that in the falsetto, but then it could sound a little strained. And so that's the wonderful thing about music. In rock and roll in particular, is a totally free art form. If I was an opera singer, I would have to sing the operas in the keys that they were written. And I know that for a fact because I've met Placido Domingo and I've met Dame Kiri Takano, and that's what they told me. You've got to sing it in. She said I've got to hit this high D. I can't take it down a tone. So that if you take the key down, you still sing all the notes written, but in a different key that suit you. So if You're Not the One, I just moved it to down, I think down a tone or something like that from what Daniel did, because he's got a high voice. He has a naturally high voice. His low notes are not as low as mine, and my high notes can't be as high as his. So I just made it mine.
It's interesting with Daniel, isn't it? He's only really known for that song, If You're Not the One. Robbie's only really known for Angels. Do you have to be careful as an artist that you might just get tagged to one song? Because when I think of you, I think of so many songs. Move It, Summer Holiday, Congratulations.
Well, no, I wouldn't worry about it, and I don't think they should. It doesn't matter if you're attached to a fantastic song. You know, I mean, I love the fact people always, they knock Congratulations. And I said, but do you realize it's one of the biggest selling records I've ever had? And do you realize that at every birthday party and anniversary or something that people are celebrating, they'll tend to sing happy birthday and or congratulations? And I'm thinking, what a great connection. I'll never be forgotten because of that song. So if you've had your angel, if You're Not the One, and everyone remembers you for that, how fantastic can that be? Because they're both great songs. But you see, the guys haven't been around as long as I have, and that's where I have the benefit. Not that I'm any better than they are, not that I don't know, whatever you want to think. It's just that I've been doing it a long time. So therefore, I went through a period where I sang just nothing but out and out rock and roll. So I've got all the Move It's and the High Class Babies, and then I went through the ballads, and I've got the All in the Games, and then I got the movies with the Summer Holidays and the Young Ones. And so therefore, as time goes by and progresses, you find that you may not have number ones all the time, but you have them quite often, and that's all it takes. I remember having this conversation with Daniel Bedingfield once when he asked me, he was very new on the scene, he'd had 3 number ones, I think, on a trot. I've never had 3 number ones on the trot. And he said, how many number ones have you had? And I said, about 14, I think. And he said, is that all? I said, Daniel, is that all? Do you realize how hard that is? 14 number ones. And he said, well, I've had 3 already. And he said, and one of them I didn't think was very good. So I said, well, just be prepared. If you have a number 2, please do not think it's a failure. It's not. My career is what it is because I've had 36 top 5s, because I've had 120 top 20s and 14 number 1s. And that's what makes your career. That's what it gives a whole bunch of people choices of songs that they will remember for all sorts of reasons. So I always like to say to people who are kicking out, don't be pushed. Again, they need the support of record companies. To remember when I first started, my first record was number 2. It wasn't number 1. Move It went to 2. High Class Baby went to number 7. Living Loving Doll went to 17. In the meantime, I'm panicking, and Norrie Paramore, my producer, was saying, don't worry, we'll find the right song for you. Sure enough, Living Doll, bam, number 1. Traveling Light, bam, number 1. Those are my 2 number 1s on the trot. I've never done it again.
Isn't it more of a numbers game now, though? You only need about 20,000 to get a number 1 today. In your day, you needed about 250,000.
Yeah, it is. And that's where, in fact, that's where we benefit, because it's never going to change back, I don't think. Not with downloads. And unless we start getting millions of downloads, no, that's never going to happen again. So that's why when I won that Ultimate Pop Star thing, they did a TV, it wasn't a vote or anything. They actually counted up all the singles released in Britain and how many singles each one of us who had released singles here had sold. I was so shocked. I cannot tell you, because once I knew they were doing it, I thought, well, I could be number 3, and I would have thought that Elvis and the Beatles would have beaten me. But they didn't. I was the ultimate pop star. I sold more singles in Britain than everybody else. So I was really thrilled about that. But that again, how can that ever change? That was for the last 50 years, by the way. What happens in the next 50 years? I don't give a darn. That belongs to the new generation, and they can have it. Because this is how much it's changed and how quickly it's changed. In 1999, when I released Millennium Prayer, I know it was a controversial, I don't know why it was so controversial. For me, it was an anthem that any religion could have sung. It didn't actually mention God or Jesus. It was just praying for a fabulous future together. And it sold 1.4 million in 5 weeks. Elvis, about 4 years ago, had some singles released, and he was number 1, and it sold 30,000. That's not Elvis's fault. It's just the industry had changed. In 4 years, it had changed so drastically. So, I'm so glad I started when I did start. And I do wish people well, though, because obviously you have to keep looking to the future. You have to realize that the downloading is probably where we're going to go. I don't think that's the best thing, because people tend to download one track. Hello, if I want to buy a Bonnie Raitt record, I want it to be a whole album, because I love her. And even though I find my favorites on that album, after 2 or 3 months, my favorites have changed, and it's the one I like least that I now like at number 3 in my chart. And you get to know the artist much more. Getting the odd track, I don't know. Maybe that's the future, and I've got to learn to live with it. But, I mean, I'm already planning that when I do my tour next year, I've got a fantastic song written by a friend of mine who wrote Saviour's Day and Little Town for me, the Christmas hits. And he's written me this wonderful song. And I thought, what am I going to do? It's such a waste. I felt like saying to him, give it to someone else to record who can get downloads. And I thought, wait a minute, why don't I try? Why don't I just make one single? Just make this record and put it out during my tour and say, this is only available on a download, and see if I can make any impact. There again, I would have to tell them, or if I was really lucky and all the radio stations became really nice to me and decided for my 50th year they would all play that track and let everybody know that it was available, I could well have a download hit. But who knows? I'll keep trying.
And I'm sure you will. We're going to take another piece of music from the album in a second from now. You made me think of a question that my favourite interviewer asked Pavarotti a few years ago, which is Larry King, and he said to him, how do you feel about the fact that you're going to be played long after you're gone? And I thought that was a tremendous question. How do you come to terms with the fact that your music will live on literally forever?
It doesn't bother me at all. Of course, that's one of the nice things if you've got a successful career, and I can't grumble about mine, can I? That there will be people that will be playing. I am part of musical history in Europe, and I know that rock and roll is an American art form, but it doesn't belong to them. And we've proved over the years that we can come alongside them and share charts with Americans and sometimes beat them. So for me to think, and after I'm dead and gone, that records of mine might be played is a fantastic feeling. What I'd love, though, is for them to say, Cliff Richard died at 105 last week, and do you remember this record? It was just last year that it was number 1. That would be great, wouldn't it?
Fingers crossed. We can make it happen if we get all our friends to do it together. We'll be back next with Sir Cliff Richard here on your favourite local radio station. I'm going to take my favourite song off the album. I still can't get over this track, Miss You Nights, which is just so moving and anthemic and beautiful. I think it's probably your best track ever, if I can be so bold.
No, you can be bold. I mean, I do think it's one of the best tracks ever that I've had. It's certainly one of the best ballads I've been given to sing. I'd mentioned about, if not for you giving me goosebumps when I heard Daniel's version of it first. I sat in the car going, it got under my skin. When Bruce Welch, who produced that track, brought it to me at my home, I had already got Devil Woman in my sweaty fist, wanting to record it, but thinking, how am I going to do this? People think of me as the man who sings Living Doll and Summer Holiday and stuff, and I've got She's Just a Devil Woman. But I wanted to do it. Now, Bruce came in with a whole bunch of songs. I played him Devil Woman. He said, fantastic. Then he said, listen to this. And he put on, a guy called Dave Townsend wrote the song, and he had recorded it for Island Records. And he played me Dave's version with all the harmonies that I do. His voice is different to mine, obviously. Well, we stood on the balcony of my home, and he said, look at me. And I said, look at me. Our arms were covered in goosebumps. And I just find that it doesn't happen to me as much anymore. But certainly with some of the songs that I've been given to sing, some of the songs I've chosen them because they've had that effect on me. I had the same effect with some people. And there are a number of them that I feel, this is really special. You don't necessarily know that because you get goosebumps, it's going to be successful, though. Because somebody else might get goosebumps listening to something else. So I release it in all good faith and hope that somebody out there might feel the same. So I'm glad to hear you say that. I mean, Miss Unites, I think, is very, very special.
Let's hear it. Isn't that beautiful? It's from the new album called Love. It's by Sir Cliff Richard. It's called Miss Unites here on your favourite local radio station. It's Alex Belfield talking to the man himself in a rare and exclusive hour-long programme. One question I've got to ask you. In a couple of hours from now, you're going to be live on BBC One national TV performing a song. Anything could happen, anything could go wrong. And you seem perfectly calm. How do you manage to do that?
Well, again, I've dealt with it before, and so therefore I've discovered that it's actually nothing to fear. The only element that is fearful about television is when it's actually live. And I've done a couple of those in the last couple of weeks where I've had to promote and it's been live. Okay, you're on air in 7 seconds and you go, oh my goodness. At least when you do this particular show, I got a chance to rehearse it. And in the case of this one, I can pre-record it live with the audience. I've got to sing it live. I've got to do it as though it's live. But that element of actually going out to the nation and going is not there. If I do it wrong, I can actually say, please let me do this again. And I can do it again. So that aspect of it is taken away. But even doing it live now, as long as you know what you're doing, you'll never stop that pounding of the heart that goes just before you start. The minute you start to sing and you hear your voice coming through and you hear the band and you think, well, this is how it should sound. It's okay. You can wipe everything else out.
And what about those live shows when things don't exactly go to plan?
Oh, I've done a few of those. I mean, someone may remember, although funnily enough, they covered it really well. The last time I did a Royal Command show, it came from Cardiff. And they gave me a sound pack. And I had a routine worked out with some dancers, and it was a whole medley of my songs with routines in it, all the songs. Well, I had to come on and do this hip thrust. The battery pack flew off my belt. You know, the headset is clipped into it, stuck into it. The weight of it carried itself and the plug came out. So now I can't hear anything. I'm still trying to sing without able to really hear myself. Pick up the pack, try to put it back on my belt, and then continue. Well, I did not like that performance. But in the end, they said to me, listen, don't worry. We had so many camera angles that when that thing shot off, we just went quickly to somewhere else. When you came back and you were trying to put it on your belt, we just did a close-up of you so the people went away. When I saw it, it was true. But it still nevertheless was the most uncomfortable performance I've done for many, many years, because when something like that happens, you're desperate to stop. And then you think, but wait a minute, there's 2,000 people in a theater watching it. I don't want to stop in front of them. So I pounded through. But it turned out to be all right. But no, those kind of occasions, fortunately, are rare.
And I'm sure with a live show, nothing can go wrong, because if it did, it would just be part of the show and you'd make something funny out of it.
The stage show, it's you're kind of in charge. And if, as this happens with me, it's happened 2 or 3 times at the same song, the song Dreaming. It's got this fabulous intro, you know, da-dang, da-da-da-down, down, down. I'm going clap, clap, da-da-down, down, 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 clap, everybody clap, down, and I'm thinking, what's the first line? Down, 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 down. And I said, stop, stop, stop. And then I said to the backing vocal group, what's the first line? And they look at each other and go, I don't know. And a girl said, 4 o'clock, I've been standing all night. So I got the lyrics from one of the audience. Then we said, okay, we start again. And then when it got to the point where I had to sing, I got this huge round of applause because I started singing it. So you can actually make fun of yourself and have fun with it with the crowd. But it's not something you want to have happen. But the audiences, I've noticed, no matter where you are on the planet, they actually like it when you become human. Because sometimes from their point of view, I always rehearse. I do not like making mistakes. I do not like things going wrong. I always say to the band, we got a review once in America when I played there. It said, watching Cliff Richard's show is like watching a video. And I thought, they were being detrimental with it, though. I said, oh my, that's fantastic. The band said, do you want us to make mistakes? I said, please do not make mistakes. I don't think people pay to see mistakes. They want to see what they see on television, what they see on a video, as near to that as possible. They want to hear the record as close to the original as possible. And that's what I do. So if a mistake happens, you just have to roll with it. Yes, you can have fun with it, but in the end, you still have a little session afterwards saying, okay, what went wrong?
And 78 albums. What was number 15, by the way?
Oh, I have no idea.
And what was number 25? You just can't know, can you, at this point?
Well, also, I can't know because the 78 albums, I only heard this just recently, that when it was announced on an introduction of myself, that 78 had been released. Some of those, of course, may have been a couple of albums in a year of compilations. I've had a string of silver discs, number 1, silver discs 2, gold discs by Cliff, gold discs by Cliff and the Shadows, another gold disc. So they come out all the time. I think the studio albums, original albums, it's much less than that. It's probably nearer the 40, 50 mark.
All right, I want to take another piece of music from this, and I want to come back and talk about Scylla, because I've got some real gossip. I don't know what to play next. I liked When You Say Nothing at All, which was the Ronan Keating one, wasn't it?
That was from the film, the Notting Hill film, wasn't it? At the very end. I always loved his version of it too.
Shall we play that one?
My version or his?
Your version.
Oh, well, yeah.
I'm not going to play his version. You'll say here with
I like his version, but no, play mine.
Nice version of When You Say Nothing at All by Sir Cliff Richard off his brand new album called Love. It's Alex Belfield with you for an exclusive hour-long programme. Now, I've got to ask you, Cliff, about Scylla, because when I was over there at her place recording one of these programmes a couple of weeks ago, she told me that she nearly cost you several £1,000s because she waffled during one of your live shows.
It was at the Albert Hall, and I'd said to her, would you like to come on and sing a song, maybe do something yourself? She said, oh, yeah, I'd like to. Then she got really nervous. Anyway, she came backstage and she heard the roar of the crowd and she said she felt good. So I introduced her. I said, we've all of us got our devil woman and here's mine, this Cilla Black. And she came on. And she was fantastic. The crowd loved her. Then I came on and we sang the duet together. And she's got her arms in the air and a split skirt and everyone's going, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I thought, I can't go on like this because after 11, you're fined for every minute you go over a couple of £1,000. So I sidled over to her and I was smiling and I said, thank you, Cilla, get off. I've only done it to 2 people and the other person, believe it or not, was Olivia Newton-John. Same thing. Olivia came on tour with me, said, I don't want to tour because I'm too nervous to work these days. And I can tell you this, I got her out of retirement. I talked her into it. She came on tour and now she doesn't stop again. But she came on and she loved it. And she's got her hands up in the air and walking around the stage. And I had to go up to her and say, Olivia, please, get off.
I think you've got a great life now because you're able to do this for a couple of months of the year and you work so hard promoting your albums and then you're able to clear off and be you and do what you love. What do you love doing the most?
Oh, yeah, there's loads of things I like to do. I suppose that, to be honest with you, when I've got a couple of hours spare, there's nothing better than getting with a pro and hitting a tennis ball. I just love the sensation. I love, it's not just playing the game as such. It's also the fact that you feel your lungs pump, you feel your pores sweat, and I feel good after a hit like that. And I say a hit because very often I don't play, quote-unquote, tennis. Because to play the game, the idea of playing a game is to hit the ball as few times as possible and win the point. So that if you're lucky, you might get to 4 shots, and the next thing someone's bouncing it, and you're breathing, and you're being served to or you're serving. Whereas if you hit with a pro in practice, even if you hit the ball out, he'll get it back. If he hits it long, you still run back and get it back. Then you drop shot, then you run forward. You hit 100 times more the ball. So therefore it's much more aerobic. And I like that. At my age, I think to myself, there's no way I'm going to win a tournament unless I'm playing with Federer, then I might, and I do my best. But so for me, if I can just get some technique going, I started so late in life, I can never really get it to look right. But sometimes I do. And the more I play it, the closer I get to making it look right. And you can only be a natural player, really, if you start really, really young. And so I can never say I'll ever be that. But I do enjoy it very much. I love watching it. And I have my tennis foundation, which is now locked in with the Lawn Tennis Association in Britain. And so we're looking forward to continuing our work among schools. And hopefully, who knows, Alex, we've looked for tennis stars for years and found a few. We've had Greg Rosetsky, we've had Tim Henman, we've got Andy Murray now, who's really so improved and could be a chance for us winning Wimbledon. So from our little efforts, we might find more tennis players.
So we know what you like to do. That's tennis. Where do you like to do it? Where's the best place in the world to go?
Wimbledon. I mean, I happen to be a member at Wimbledon, so it's always great to play there. But my life is in the last few years, even though I'm trying to slow down, has been almost more tumultuous than it's ever been. So I haven't had a chance to get there very often. But when I do, it's a great place to play. It's a wonderful atmosphere. It's a club, remember. In fact, it's the only Grand Slam that actually is a private club. It's almost as though we let you all in to watch the tennis. So it's a great privilege to go there and play. But, anywhere there's good weather is good. I love playing in Portugal at my own home because the only time I can get the coach is between 12 and 2 in the afternoon, and it's about 90 degrees in the shade. And again, I love it. I love going out there, sweating, and when I come off, I feel like I've had a real workout, heart's pumping. And within about 4 or 5 days of playing with a coach in those conditions, I get through the hour with only one stop, maybe for some water. So it's very fit-making.
Whenever I interview you, I always come away feeling inadequate. Because you're so blessed with talent, of course, but then you're so thin. Most guys of your age are having heart attacks and are about 48 stone.
Well, a lot of it's to do with discipline. You have to be disciplined. And of course, my career has been a disciplined thing. You have to commit yourself to a project and you have to stick with it. If you want to look good on stage, you have to give up something. You have to. And also, just in terms of health now, you don't have to be an artist to be motivated to be slim, because being slim, of course, is no guarantee that you won't die early, but at least you give yourself a chance of living longer, because if you're doing what doctors are recommending, which is doing a little exercise, some dieting, making sure you eat the good food as well. Dieting, you can actually eat bad food and eat less of it, but if you eat good food, you can actually eat a little more of it. But doing all of that keeps you fit, and that's mainly my motive for The fact that I look slim is partly because my build would never allow me to be fat. But remember, I used to be 12 stone 7 and I'm now 11 stone. So I was, quite a bit heavy, 21 pounds heavier. Now I stick to 11 stone, and whatever I can do to keep it there is fine by me.
And the ladies always go on these message boards on your fan websites and say to me, please can you ask him, how does he look so good in the face? Creams, potions, lotions, surgery, how do you do it?
Everything. You've got to, I've been at the BBC before now where the makeup artist has come and said, have you tried this new stuff? And I said, well, what is it? Write it down for me. And she'd write down some kind of, moisturizer or something like that. And I'm thinking, I've started using all that stuff because nowadays you realize that, as men, we are just as much damaged by the environment as women are. And if you want to look good, and remember, probably if I wasn't a singer and being photographed all the time, I probably wouldn't bother as much, to be honest with you. But that is a great motivation. I know that people are going to take pictures, and although I'll never look 18 again, and thank heavens, I just want to look as good as I can look at this age. And anything that'll help, I partake of it.
When you see the old black and white film of the guy in the 60s that was having all those screaming teenagers around him, is that you? How do you view that person all those years ago?
No, it's still me. I still recognize it. I still think, I can remember that like it was yesterday. I see some odd photographs. I found some photographs the other day of my mom and two of my sisters with me in Greece when I was filming some holiday. And suddenly I thought, I can remember it. I remember that bus. I remember the whole thing we filmed in Greece up in the mountainside. And then by putting snow on the top, they technically put snow on, and that was Switzerland. So I can remember things so vividly that it just feels like yesterday. No, that Cliff Richard still is me, but I've obviously realized that you can't live in that world forever. You've got to move with the world as it moves. And I've tried to do that over the years, and maybe that's helped me attain longevity.
We'll take another piece of music from the album Love.
Of the other songs, Some People. To me, that's a classic pop ballad. When you think about it, you're right smack in the middle after about 2 verses. You get that instrumental sting goes in, and in the middle of it, and you suddenly go, it's Alan Tarney and people like Terry Britton who wrote Devil Woman. They really know about pop rock, and they know how to do it. And I just wish they'd write more, and not just for me, but for some of the new guys.
We're back with our remaining moments with Sir Cliff Richard. Great song, great album. We've got a lot to talk about in our remaining moments. I saw something on the TV, and I think this was a joke. It was a calendar with pictures of you naked. You can't really be releasing this, can you?
Oh, yeah, I'm not naked, though. It's sort of stripped to the waist and shaving, I believe. And I think the Daily Mail got hold of it and did a good story. It was a fantastic story from my point of view, because they actually took a shot of me from the early 60s, where I was stripped to the waist also on a beach somewhere, and said, look, he hasn't changed that much. And I hadn't really. I was surprised. My physical shape was pretty well the same. So it was a nice article for me. But no, it's just fun. I'm just trying to think of different things to do. When you do a calendar year after year after year, one close-up with a smile is about the same as any other close-up with a smile. So we try to think of different things for me to do, whether it's wearing big bomber jackets and slouched over a seat, or shaving in the morning, stripped to the waist. It's just fun.
What will you be doing for Christmas this year?
Shaving, stripped to the waist. I'm going to go, my family and I are not together this year, so I'm going to take the opportunity to spend Christmas in New York. For anybody listening, it's a good time to go to America because the pound is so strong against the dollar. But apart from that, New York is a wonderful city at Christmas time. Some of the trees on the streets are wrapped in white lights, not just the trunk, but the branches, not just the branches, but every flipping twig. And it's magnificent. The whole area is wonderful. So I'm going to enjoy that.
And the Rockefeller tree has got 32,000 lights on it this year.
Is it really? Well, I always go to see that too. And right opposite there, of course, I don't know whether it's on Fifth Avenue, that big building there. Last year they had every half an hour, they had a kind of light show. Music was pouring out from everywhere, and the lights were going all over the building. There was a whole, it was choreographed lights to the music. It was fantastic.
Sir Cliff, thank you very much for talking to me again. It's always a pleasure. Every year we do these interviews, and your fans just love it. They can't get enough of you. And seeing you just rehearse there for the show you're going to do later on the BBC is incredible. You just come alive. It's so you. And after all these years, it's remarkable that you even can be bothered to do it. Congratulations on that.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to all your listeners too. Thank you for supporting me and following me all the years. And, I'll see you next year. I'm on tour, so I guess I'll see most people.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, and you too, and a Happy New Year.
The Alex Belfield In Conversation podcast with daisymedia.co.uk.